morning. Welcome to the Java Cafe, Java fam.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Good morning. Today is Thursday, March 16th, 2024, and you are in the Java Cafe for the last day of what I'm calling Equity Week. Let's do a quick review. On Monday, we talked about anxiety for Mental Health Mondays, as this is Mental Health Awareness Month. And so that was some health equity. On Tuesday, we talked, I forgot that quick. On Tuesday, hold on, I got the flyers right here. On Tuesday, we talked with Comcast and we talked about digital equity. Yesterday, we had the opportunity to talk with Mark Martinez and also Maria from Homes for Equity. And so we talked about housing equity yesterday. And as I mentioned all week, today, we're wrapping up this equity week and talking with Mission Grammar School about the work that they're doing and intentionality around equity. They are the oldest parochial school in the city of Boston, and they went under one name at one time. There is a very popular person that wants to send a greeting once I get ready to bring them on screen. And we were texting back and forth, and I'm like, what is OLPH? And so that's the old name, and they're going to tell you about it in a second. But I am honored to bring in staff, and I believe one former, maybe alumni of Mission Grammar School that's here with us today. But they're both going to introduce themselves in just a second. I'm going to share with them who that greeting is from, and then we're going to jump in and talk about their history and their intentionality around equity. We need a lot of equity education. There's currently a case in the court right now in reference to like some of our exam schools and things. And so I honor the fact that they reached out to highlight the fact of what they're doing for education equity on their campus. And so without further ado, I would like to introduce the folks from Mission Grammar School. Both, please say good morning. You all can decide who's going to go first and greet the folks. And then finally, after making you wait since about 8:55, I'll tell you who the greeting is from.
Great. Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning.
And go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
My name is Marnie Walsh. I am a UPK teacher at Mission Grammar, and I'm also the co-creator of the MDAT, which is Mission Grammar Diversity Action Team, and that we talk about equity work in school and panning out of school, ways we can support our scholars, support our staff and faculty by having like tough conversations about racial equity and identity. And yeah.
It's good to have you here.
Thank you.
My name is Caroline Sliney. I'm the principal here. I work with Marty and our team here at Mission to make sure that our scholars have everything that they need to be able to thrive here in our community and in the larger Boston community.
And I did not know you were the principal with us. So that just, you can quote unquote respect to all the staff and whatnot, but you're very busy. And so when the principal comes in at 9:08 in the morning, about their dedication to getting the message out. And so I don't know if you guys heard of this new wonderful restaurant down in the Seaport District. It's owned by a Black woman that in 1996, she graduated from Our Lady of Perpetual Help. And that is Miss Nia Grace. Yeah. And so she sends greetings. She is in the midst of getting ready to open another Grace all the way down in Foxwoods. Saw the flyer, and I got a text this morning, and the text says exactly this: morning, please give a shout out to Mission Grammar School and the guest today from me. I am OLPH class of 1996. And so I was like, what's OLPH? And she told me. And so I definitely wanted to share that greeting with you all from Nia Grace. In a further text, she said, simply love that place. And so that says a lot. Nia is a very straightforward person, and it says a lot. And so I wanted to ask both of you, and maybe Caroline.
Yes.
Caroline, I wanted to ask you to, before we went live, we started talking a little bit about the history. It is the oldest parochial school in the city of Boston. Can you give us a little bit of the history and then end with your segment, why there's this intentionality around equity?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, as you kind of mentioned, we've been around since 1889, which is a really long time. But I think, when we think about equity and intentionality around inclusion, we think a lot about the kind of changing demographics, the changing communities, the changing spaces that exist in Mission Hill, that exist in Roxbury, that exist in Boston. And I think that our dedication has never changed. It's always been kind of a core value for us to make sure that all of our scholars and our community members and our teachers and our families feel represented, feel appreciated, feel seen and known in an authentic way. But that's changed a lot as the neighborhood has changed, as the kids that we serve has changed. And so I think that when we think about our program, which serves kids from 3 months old till they're graduating at the end of 6th grade when they're 12, we're walking with families during a huge, huge portion of their kids' lives. And so our dedication to inclusion and equity is really based in this idea that at different stages of a child's life, at different stages of a family's life, at different stages of a city's life, we need to be kind of dynamic and nimble in the ways that we create the spaces within our school. And so we've been doing that since 1889 and continue into our planning for, 2025 and beyond. And so I think that Marnie's a great example of the community members that we try to elevate and try to empower to say, this is the moment that we're in right now. Here's what our community needs. Here's who we need to be. And here's how we can create those spaces in a responsive way when we might look different, or our community might look different, or our neighborhoods might look different than they did even last year, never mind 100 years ago.
Well, let me ask, and I'm going to go to Marty in a second. There was a shift in 2020, post George Floyd. I think particularly for you that move in the education space, the recognition that there was always the ability to get folks computers that didn't have computers, to do hybrid learning, to put that extra support under those that are giving the education and then those that need it. And so just one sort of deeper dive question there. You talk about the history of Mission always doing that, or back in what was OLPH. Was there a shift, come 2020? How did that intentionality change post everything that happened in 2020?
Yeah, I mean, we have 90% scholars of color and families of color in our community. So I think that we had a huge choice to make. Like, we're going to lead into this conversation. We're not going to shy away from it. We're going to unapologetically say, this is important. These are the people that are being affected by a number of different things happening in our world. And it's not just happening in other places, it's happening here, and it's happening in real time. And so we really, I think, decided to lean into that and say, we are going to be a safe space, but we're also going to be a space that says, you are proud, you are a proud person of color. How do we ensure that that and that you're protected here, but that you also know that you're going to have opportunities to find your voice, to speak your truth, to be able to say, I'm in pain, or I need a safe space, or I actually have access to your point, the technology, the resources, the truth that will help me to understand who I am, my identity, and how I'm going to change the world. And we really, I think in 2020 decided we were going to say yes to that and lean in, rather than take a step back and say, this is a lot, and we're going to kind of stay on a different side of that.
Yeah.
Well, one, I appreciate you as an ally, being very real. And I've heard you use words like unapologetically and authentically. And so thank you for creating that space as the leader there. And so, Marty, let me ask you, I heard the words unapologetically. I heard the words authenticity. Is the proof in the pudding? I see you shaking your head every time Carolyn is talking. And so from your experience as a Black woman there that's doing it, and I didn't want to presume if you were alumni or not, tell us a little bit about you and your journey getting there. And then let's talk about the actual action of what we just heard.
Sounds good. So yeah, we talked a little bit about the pandemic, which was definitely a really challenging time because I was a 2020 graduate from Stonehill College. So it was kind of, for me, like a game time decision. Like, the world shut down, and I'm seeing like all these instances of like racism and police brutality. And I'm just like, what am I doing? What am I going to do in my life? Like, how can I change it? And I first started doing like nonprofit work, which was empowering, but I really care about children, and like I have younger siblings and younger cousins, and I'm like, like, it's important that I'm working with adults, but like, how can I, provide like the tools I have and like continue to learn more from other people. So I'm like, I think working in a school and like working with kids and like-minded adults would be the next step. So I quit working the nonprofit. I was living in Vermont with my family. I moved to Boston. Luckily, I had like a cousin here and I got my first apartment. And I remember emailing Amanda Kelly, who's the director of UPK, and I was like, "Hi, like, are you all hiring?" And she was like, "Yeah, like, come in for an interview." And then I started, I started here, and then from there, it just kind of took off, which was I'm like a very type A person and like doing that was a lot for me, but I was like proud of myself for just being like, nope, like I know where my skill set is and I know where, my bucket can be filled. So like that's where I started. I started, like supporting the K2 classrooms. And then I got my own classroom. I was a pre-K teacher and now I'm UPK, which is a part of Boston Public.
What
And
is
I'm the lead.
UPK? Just for clear, because the education and government, we throw these acronyms around, and I'm like UPK.
Yeah, Universal Free School.
Okay, got you.
Yep. Which is it's a great program. But that's what I am. I have my own classroom of 18 great scholars, and it's been awesome so far.
It's just interesting because you smiled and everything throughout the presentation, but there was a little more smile when you said 18 scholars. And the fact that you call your baby scholars, I think sets a whole sort of tone for their approach and how they engage you as an instructor there in
Yeah.
education. And so they're okay. We got our questions over here, and there's just so many different ways that I can go real quick. And so we talked about 2020. We talked about the pandemic. We talked about the whole history. Carolyn, let me ask you, where are we, based on what we just talked about from your lens, where are we with education equity in general? I mentioned that, one of the, there was some a couple of years ago, I'm sure up with current events, there was a change in our exam school policy with intentionality for more equity. Folks are fighting that. Some of the folks that are fighting that are of color. And so education equity, where are we sort of in a universal state, and then bring it back home to why mission is really just gearing up and like I heard you hear the word dedication. I heard you say heard you say the word dedication. And so where are we with education in a sort of global state, and then bring it back to home?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that I think the push to say like where's the proof? Like show us the money a little bit is really fair. I think that I think that there were a lot of conversations, there was a lot of calls to action in 2020, and there was a lot of commitments made. And I think 4 years later and looking to the future, that if that's not still happening, if the actions still aren't being taken, if we're not continually reflecting on what's working, what's not, are we staying in alignment with the commitments we made? I think then we're not doing what we're supposed to do. And I think that that's globally. And I think that we're seeing different organizations, particularly in the education space, like they talked a big game many years ago. And now it's sort of like, well, that was important then, it's not important
That was
now.
cute. Yeah. Yep.
And I do think that that's something that, is heavy on our minds, is to say, like, are we actually doing what we say we're going to do? And are we holding ourselves accountable for that? And I think at Mission, what we're really focusing on right now is we made some really big structural changes. We really looked at our curriculum. We looked at our instructional practices. We really said, for us, equity and inclusion means excellence. And that's important, that we're going to allow for access and opportunity for our kids and for our alumni, because we're going to be excellent, because we're going to make sure that they're graduating with critical thinking skills, with communication skills, with a deep curiosity and the ability to access and read, texts and information that's going to empower them. And so for us, those were structural things that we've looked at over the last 4 years. And now we're talking a lot about, okay, so how do we make sure that that continues regardless of who the teachers are? Like, how do we really make sure that that's instructionally part of who we are, so that when we have a new alumni who comes in and joins us, or we have, someone who is joining our community, they say, oh, I know what it means to be a member of this community. And that's beyond who's in the principal position. It's beyond who's on the teaching team. That's core to who we are. And I think that part of that is that like self-accountability and that ability to part of our practice and part of our community is doing those self checks and saying, actually, that's not what we're about. And, or that choice that you're making is not in alignment with what we're working on or what we say we want to do. And that's really hard, but I think that that's, you know, that's where we are to try to keep this commitment that we've made and continue to make. And I think it's important. I think it's very important, particularly as a leader who is not a person of color in this community, is to say, like, I need to be able to have folks who feel safe enough to say, that's not a right choice, or that's not in alignment with what we're doing here, or that's not what our community needs. And I think that that's really important for moving forward and making sure that that's institutionalized, not just who's driving the bus.
Because okay. So a lot of the investments that were made in 2020, like 85% of them are gone and whatnot. So again, I'm hearing you use words like institutionalize, structure. You changed the structure there. So, okay. Let me pull myself back a little quick, because it is just great to hear. And I want to, I'm going to come back to Marty and ask her right now. So any feedback to what Carolyn just said in reference to you there? You're doing it as a teacher to the scholars, but you're a part of faculty. You have the other group sort of that you started and is leading. And so as a Black woman that is probably seeing what's going on in the world, in society, and may have experienced some things, being there at Mission, how does that help you adjust your crown?
It's definitely, I feel like even just like taking it a step back and make it small, like even when I walk in, depending on what's going on at home, like making sure I'm like trying to leave it at the door, but like when I have like my little Black girls being like, Miss Marnie, your hair looks so good today. Like certain things like that is like, it's just so affirming, and like being able to connect with like hair and identity, like I didn't always have as a kid, which was like, could be really hard, but like being able to share just like that small connection with like my scholars is just such a beautiful experience. But also too, like having conversations like about race and about like racism and equity. Like I know they're for, but like I try to make sure like we're having those conversations and they're not scared to be like, yes, I am Black, or no, I'm Latinx, or I do speak a different language, and like, that's a great thing. So I've like definitely been trying to be like, you need to stand in your power. Like this is me, this is like Marnie, this is me like as Marnie, not just as a teacher, but this is me as my being, but allowing them to also like stand in there. And I know you talked about like when you're introducing us like about mental health this week, also being able to like tell the kids, like, how are you feeling today? Like you're not always going to be happy, and like using different words to be like, no, I am angry. Like specifically like for my Black boys, like I never want them to be scared to say I'm angry. Be angry, like get upset. If you need to cry, if you need to like stomp, let it out. Like you're safe here. Like it's a safe space. The world may tell you something differently, but like I'm going to tell you like your emotions are valid. So just kind of starting like at a really small segment and like helping them like work their way up. So like when they're not in my classroom, like they're able to be like, nope, Ms. Marnie said I can cry. Ms. Marnie said I can be angry. So like just allowing them to like use their voice, and they do, and they talk. They'll let me know. They're like, Ms. Marnie, I'm annoyed with you today. I'm like, oh, I did teach you that. So it's okay. It's all right. But yeah.
Now listen, I'm a little old school. This new generation of our babies, I'm telling us, I don't like the way you said that to me.
Yep.
In my generation, we couldn't even think about forming those words. And so it's every time that sort of subject comes up where you got a 3 or 4 year old that says the way that you said that to me really hurt my feelings, and I think you should rephrase it. What? But what it does is it is creating a normalcy around emotional intelligence. I love that as a Black woman, and I'm sure you got some Black men floating around there, that space is being created because you probably have saved somebody from pinning up anger, and based on decisions and life circumstances, they now know how to let it out rather than going and shoot a gun. They now know how to let it out rather than in getting so upset with a partner and letting it out in domestic partner violence. They now, may not go out and just obstruct property because they're so angry. And I'll keep it real. There are times when I'm angry and I just feel like I want to break something. Let's keep it 100. So thank you. Carolyn, and I want to apologize to both of you. I have to get to a funeral shortly. And so I can't, usually this type of conversation will wind up in a whole hour, but I do have to be a little brief today. But I wanted to ask, because you all set a great example for the education space around just creating an environment where this is a standardized, normal or normalized standard. And the reason why I fluctuated between the two, because both of them point to the fact that this is foundational. This is, you said, structure, and you want this when we hear the word institutionalize often, it's on the other side. And so, Carolyn, if I could ask you as an ally, and that word, is interesting for me at times, because I don't want to take away from the authenticity and the what is the word you use? Authenticity and unapologetically who you are as a person. How do you walk in that, in your authentic self, in understanding and naming? You don't understand some of the situations and whatnot, but how did you get to the place that it is such a natural thing for you? Because some people with good intentions attempt, and then often it doesn't pan out the way from what I'm hearing here. And so if you could speak to allyship and give I know you're not in the classroom anymore, but if you could give us, a quick little instruction. No, go ahead. I'm sorry. Because it means a lot. It means a lot. It means a lot to see this. Yes.
I mean, I would definitely, reframe a little bit. Like, I appreciate the sentiment, but it's not natural, right? It's constant. It's the constant seeking to make sure that I'm checking myself, that I'm listening, that I'm asking questions, and I think that that's important, right? Because I think, it would be foolish for me to think like, I figured it out. I figured out how to be an ally, guys. I got this, and I think that it's important because in a school where we serve over 300 kids and have over 60 faculty and staff members, many of whom are people of color, the dynamic challenges that come up, the opportunities that come up, the things that we're facing are always shifting and changing. And so I really try to check myself and like my reactions to things and say to, whoever is in the room or looking around and saying who's not in the room that should be, to say like, what voices do we need at the table to make sure that we're being responsive to this situation? And that, I think, is where, the MDAT team that Marnie's spoken about is so important. Is like, there's a reason that the acronym is like, it's an action team. It's a team that's being called to conversation, to analysis, to really deep questioning and uncomfortable conversations, right? Like, I can set the expectation that this is what happens when a child has really big feelings, but there is also an element of like, we need a safe space for teachers to say, here's how I'm being affected by the behaviors that I'm experiencing in my classroom. How can I be a better, leader or teacher when those situations arise? And so it is a little bit of finding that balance between like, sure, there's like research and best practice and reading and, a lot of listening and learning that I am very committed to continuing to do, but there's also the authentic, I keep saying that word, but like the real relationships where I try to have relationships with my team where somebody can say, actually, can I grab you and close the door? And like, that was not it. That like the way that like you responded, or the way that this happened, or perhaps you didn't even realize that, when this conversation was happening, these words were being said, and that was aggressive or taken in this way. I think that you have to have those spaces to have that accountability between people in your community, or else it will be really hard to move forward and do anything that we've said we're about.
That definitely is a good definition and model for relationships. You're basically teaching folks relationship skills. I just wanted to thank you for sort of I can't think of another, for clarifying for me. What I meant by the natural is there is the willingness, there is the naming of, there is everything that you said in response to. At least there is an acknowledgement and a willingness to say, I don't know, I haven't lived it, but I'm open. And so that's what I meant by natural, because yeah. Marty, tell me, we're going to get ready to wrap up in a few minutes. Like, what does a parent and a student, what should they expect if they come? I'm sure you may have tours or different things like that where folks can reach out and come and look at the school and
Mhm.
get a sense. We got the sign off from Nia Grace as an alum there, and she said she loves that place. Presumably, she's still involved, here and there and doing some things. And so,
Yeah.
what can a parent expect? And then we'll talk about how they can reach out to you. We have the website that's up as well. But what can a parent expect coming into Mission Grammar School? And one clarifying question: do they have to come in, at kindergarten? Can they pop in at fourth grade? Do you prefer to kind of have them in the beginning so you can, rear them up in the way that they should go? That way, when they get older, they won't depart. Put a little scripture in there for Bonnie, go ahead.
No, parents can expect just like I would say overall like love and care, because I know like that's where my teaching stems from. Like I adore my scholars and like I will do absolutely anything I can to support them and their parents. Like we talk a lot about like family partnerships, and we have like a family organization here at Mission Grammar. And just like constantly working with parents, either we use an app like Daily Connect or Talking Points or phone calls, just like constant communication. And like I talk to them in the mornings at drop off and pickup. Just like I'm always making sure like they're aware of their scholars day. Their positive feedback is constantly happening. Like in our app, we post pictures so they can see, like they're not in the dark. Like it's a partnership. So we're constantly working together. We're never alone. And some of my scholars in my classroom started in infancy and then all the way came through, but they don't have to. Like I have a new
Okay.
scholar who just came in. This is their first time ever going to school, and they're doing phenomenal, and they absolutely adore it. So I'm like transfer. It's a mix.
It is a mix. Go ahead.
Something
Yeah.
that Marnie and all of our teachers do, which I think is really important, is as part of that open communication, there's a lot of opportunity to say like, what is important for your family? What do you celebrate? What's happening in your home, and how can we celebrate that here?
Yeah.
And so there's all time. I think the answer is sort of across the board with all of our teachers in these conversations is like, yes. And like, how can we really make sure that if there's a cultural celebration or a tradition that's happening in your home, how can we help the other 17 kids in the class understand what that is? And then how could we explore that, as a school as well? And so how are we being reflective of all of the different communities and cultures that we represent?
And we did, like in my class, we are a Catholic school, but like not everyone identifies with the Catholic faith, but just also like making sure, like Caroline said, like I send out a survey, have conversations like with my parents about like things that they're looking for in like education, like things I can add on to the curriculum, just so it's more like inclusive, and then circles back to, amplifying, uplifting, like making sure like no student is like left on the sideline, that we're all like in unison, like we are a family, and like everyone's voice should be involved and matters in the picture. And even just like touching, we did a Black History Month celebration, and Ayanna Presley came, and it was really amazing to like be able to facilitate that. I feel bad because I like kept emailing her scheduler. I'm like, when could she come? But it was great to be able to like see the reactions of like Black scholars, but also like other BIPOC scholars, and like seeing the joy and the excitement and the energy when she was speaking, and it was just such a beautiful experience.
That is definitely a good sister friend of mine as well. So I'll pass on to her that you guys said hello as well. And so as we get ready to wrap up, we have the website here. Everyone, please go to the website if you are interested in setting up a time to go view the school. I'm sure there's a donate. Y'all are you're technically a nonprofit, so there may be a donate button there if you want to donate and further the work. Those type of donations, I would encourage you, if you do it, put unrestricted, so that way Caroline can do whatever she wants to do with the money when it's unrestricted. And listen, I know and so, but also check them out to go check out the school, because I just really think it's so important that we don't hear the words like formative years. We don't hear the words like laying a foundation as we used to. We don't hear as often, not saying that others don't in public school and others, but you said, the foundation of this is love. You know what I mean? And it just, that really stands out to me and sets a tone. The one thing I wanted to name as well, as much as, and you know, this word has been demonized so much, but there is the wokeness of what you're creating in the environment. But Caroline, it did not miss me that you talked about the rigor and the education and what they're leaving with. And so you're getting the academic in, like, of what they really are going to go out into the world in a real life setting. Isn't
Yeah.
that
Yep.
Yeah. Yep.
y'all done just made me tired real quick, because it just, it's so interesting how the simple things sometimes confound those who believe that they are wise. And it's just love, care on our babies, balance. Listen, and I love the fact that you create an environment that the teachers, because they have endured and are enduring a lot, because there's an impact on them. It takes a lot to be able to keep and hold the space for the young people that may be dealing with some things, or the little black young man that may be angry. That has an impact on the teachers. You don't just hear that young man's story why he's angry and then you go and teach the next class. No, there's something stirring in your head as to what's going on at home. All right, y'all
Yeah.
done got me in a whole different place. I listen, folks. This go check out Mission Grammar School on the website. And think about it. Now, it's a parochial school. There, you know, it's not a free public school. I would presume, and not to put you on the spot, there may be sliding fee scale and things like that based on income. Give us a little, what is the, if you were at a table and doing recruitment, you know, at one of the, I don't know, wherever they do recruitment for schools.
Well, I want to reiterate what you said earlier, which is that we accept scholars any grade level. So that it's certainly not something that we're like, if you're not in the Mission Grammar program, we're not supporting you.
Yep.
So we're open for all grades, infants up through 6th grade. And we have a very, very deep commitment, which ties into everything that we've already talked about, which is that we never want, and are very committed to making sure that money is not an obstacle for anyone to join our community. So we have great supports and partnerships that allow for us to have very, very substantial financial aid opportunities. And we work with every single family personally. We sit down with them and talk through what their goals are for their family, what their ability is, and how they can access a Mission Grammar experience. So we are very, very open to all of those conversations, and really want to make sure that if a family wants to be at Mission Grammar, we will work with you to make sure that it can happen.
There's really not that much other that needs to be said there. This was good. Pastor Marion is saying,
You got to come visit us now too.
Well, I do not have, y'all have the information here, Anissa. I would, oh my God. And I did Young Achievers some years ago. And now I'll be honest, that age group is you have to set a different tone, and your delivery is very different from high school. But you know, I would love to come and just see and share some time with the young people, talk to the young men and young women as well, because I think it's important. You know, we put men with young men and women with young women, but at some iteration in there, needed to cross-pollinate, so the young men are affirmed by a woman and the young women are affirmed by a man. You know, I think that's very important. So please let Anissa know, and I will do my best to be there to support. But this was really good, and I'm glad. Belinda, I just mentioned Belinda, listen, she will listen. But go to the website if folks want to donate. And I tell my audience all the time, you know, 25 people with $5 or 10 people, you know, with $10, it makes a difference. You know what I mean? You all can support somebody's haircut, or you could, you know, get an extra box of crayons or whatever. Take them to, you know, anyway. This was good, y'all. This was really good. I'm glad you guys reached out to make sure that we know that despite a lot of other things that are fighting equity education, that there is one of the oldest entities in this city is being so intentional and inclusive and institutionalizing equity. I haven't had the opportunity to say that often.
It's important.
Yeah, and Caroline, just the fact of your response when you heard me say that says a lot. I didn't miss that. So I'm going to let you guys go to get back to the babies. Both of you let Anissa know what's going on. And thank you both for being here. And thank both of you for what you do in shaping our future. We don't know if the next president is coming out of there. We don't know if the next doctor, we don't know if the person that's going to find a cure to, HIV and AIDS and cancer. And we just don't know. Teachers that may not align with this sort of philosophy, you don't know who you have before you. So treat them. All right, I'm going into a whole different space. I'll get y'all off screen. But thank you both for being here so much. And please let Anissa know what's going on, and we'll go from there.
Thank you so much.
Thank you both.
Bye.
Listen, folks, that was one of the most inspiring interviews I've had around education in a while. Listen, they could teach some folks a few things. I can at least send a Dunkin' card. Or just if you get a chance, Uber Eats them some coffee or something. But I got to get off of here, you all, to go and celebrate the life of a good friend and brother by the name of Mark Gaines. Yes. So we're going to get off of here. UCB folks, you get an hour today. This is my Friday. So we will see you guys on Monday at 9 a.m. Monday's lineup for next week includes, hold on for 1 second. Next week's lineup is on the 20th. We have Yolande Borskov, who is going to talk with us for Mental Health Mondays through our partnership with Pure Spark about coping skills for stress. On the 21st, we have Dr. Lucy. On the 23rd, we have, on the 23rd, we have Corrine and Corrine Reynolds and Asaria Daniels at 7 p.m. And so I'll get the clarity on the schedule. We'll be here Monday at 9 o'clock. That's what you need to know for Mental Health Mondays, as we're highlighting Mental Health Awareness Month through our partnership with Naisha Deed and Pure Spark. So that's it for me, everyone. Sharon Cornelius, better late than never. Good to see you in the room. We're going to get off of here and get up to that service. Please keep the Gaines family in prayer. Please keep Bishop Dickerson in prayer. Please keep Skip's Barbershop and all the barbers across the city that has worked with Mark. Please keep all of his customers in prayer. This is a big hit for a lot of folks. And so we're going to be on our way to the service to celebrate this young man's life. And we'll see you guys on Monday morning at 9 a.m. Have a great, safe weekend, everybody. And we'll talk to you soon. Peace, everyone.